Boy, this is a quiet group. My kids don't even stop and listen to me this way. I have to figure out what the solution is. Anyway, first of all, just let me welcome you to the 2013 Broadband Tech Summit. And let me introduce myself. My name's Spencer Eccles. I'm the Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And I'm really honored to be here, and I'm especially honored that each of you would take time out of your busy schedules to be here. I think that the progress that we've made in terms of the broadband mapping project and the progress that we will make will be significant, and it will be an important contributor to our economy in the state. So thank you. Let me first recognize Glenn Ricart, who's up here on the stage with us. He's the founder and CTO of US Ignite, and he's going to be our morning keynote speaker. Kelly Cole, who's also on the stand with us here today. She's our newly anointed, appointed, and elevated broadband project manager. Tara Tui, who used to run the program, is taking a job with another organization. And we were just grateful to have someone with the quality and the talent level that we have with Kelly, that we could just elevate right and not lose a step or miss a beat. So thanks, Kelly, for being here and for organizing the event with your team. So it's my privilege now just to briefly thank our sponsors. These events in the state of Utah just simply cannot happen without the support of the business people and the business and the companies that are around. And so just let me walk through a couple of sponsors and pay attention to them, because these are the groups that step forward, and we love the help that they've given us consistently over the years. So I'd like to thank Media One for donating the advertising space for the summit, and our Utah and the Utah Rural Telecom Association for recording the summit, which is occurring right now. And our camera crews are being provided by Manti Telephone and Emory Telecom. So thank you to them. And at the end, we'll give them all a big round of applause. We've got summit sponsors: Media One, Comcast, CenturyLink, Google Fiber, which I think a lot of people are familiar with in this town, Vivint Wireless, also another local group, Utah Rural Telecom Association as well, Ballard Spar, X-Mission, iSchool Campus. And so if you could all just join me and thank our sponsors, I'd appreciate that. I think most of you know these companies, but if there are some that you don't, please become familiar with them and some of the contributions that they're making and the business that they're doing. So today's summit's evidence that the technology industry is thriving here in Utah. Let me just add, we've got a company that is here from Israel, not here today in this building, but we did a trade mission that the governor led out on, and the goal was diplomatic. The goal was to drive relationships with academia and research, and the goal was to expand our export and our economic growth. And this company has come all the way from Israel, and it's in the IT industry, and it just kind of begins to speak to the vision statement that the governor's put out, that we will lead the nation as a state. And not only that, in terms of our economy, but not only that, but we will be recognized as a premier global business destination. That's a key point. And we truly are a global business destination. And oftentimes I like to highlight the fact that one of the goals is not just to promote it outside the state, but for us internally to recognize that we're globally, we do global business in nature, and that's where a lot of our growth is coming from in terms of our economy. So about a year and a half ago, the governor challenged our office, as well as the business community and others around the state, to accelerate the creation of 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days. I'm happy to report that each of you has contributed to that in a significant way, as have others that are either working or creating businesses, but we're well ahead of schedule. We're 70,000+ jobs. You can go to utahjobsplan.com to hold us accountable and see where we are, but it's an important component. That goal was stated at a time when, during the kind of the presidential elections and whatnot, a lot of people were talking about the jobs that were created by government. In Utah, we clearly recognize that jobs are not created by government. Jobs are created by the private sector. And in government, we can either inhibit the creation of jobs or accelerate that. And so that's been the goal. And in the last couple of years, the governor's let out on a number of initiatives, one of which was, for example, identifying on the business regulatory side the number of regulations we have in this state at a state level that impact business. We identified 69. And in the last 2 years, over 350 of those have either been eliminated or have been modified. And in the last State of the State, the governor asked 4 cities to lead out as pilot programs to take what we at the state level and implement that strategy. And Provo was one of those. And so we're grateful for Provo for doing that. But if we're truly going to be a business-friendly state, we need to be friendly at the state level as well as the city-county level and other areas. So one of the things that we're doing as it relates to that goal of accelerating 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days. You'll note that while technology firms have the highest concentration along the Wasatch Front, Silicon Slopes, which is the term that we've been using, encompasses the technology cluster statewide. We see growth of technology in places far beyond the Wasatch Front, Cedar City, Logan. We see small technology companies, for example, sprouting up in areas as far as Grouse Creek, where somebody utilizing broadband technology works to enhance their and supplement their farm income. In fact, the governor was up there and recently, within the last year or so, and met with a woman, and she said, you know, I started this company, and out of a population of about 90 people, she now employs 5 people, and that's all due to broadband. She could not have done that she couldn't have started this internet ranchware sales company without broadband. So what you're doing here today is really important. Help small businesses, as I've illustrated. Let me just highlight a couple of things, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Kelly, I think. Recently took a tour with Emery. Where's Emery? He's in the room somewhere. Is Emery here? Can I look around? Okay, stand up, Emery, just so everybody sees you, sees what you're doing. Thank you, appreciate it. Emery put together a tour for a number of county commissioners and state officials as well as others that were interested to go down into our rural areas where our tribes are. An area that is significant, that sometimes is overlooked, I would add. And we were able to visit, and visit Navajo Nation, the Paiute tribes, and a number of different bands, and also down around the Hopis. We ventured over into Arizona as well and saw ways in which we could collaborate. 2 things are really important to move the ball forward, and that's why I think this is so important. Number 1, communication and sharing of information, and number 2 is collaboration. The trip that we took helped us identify ways in which we can help some people that are in the state that have some challenges, and some of those challenges are associated with the expansion of broadband and the mapping of it. We are the most connected state in the union. 97% of our total population of this state have access to broadband. We can do more and we can do better. And so I was grateful for Emery to put that together. There are a number of other stories like that. And so I'm just grateful for the collaboration that we have here, the opportunity we have now to communicate and work together. And a lot of great things will happen and come from this. And if we truly are going to lead the nation as the best performing economy and be recognized as a premier global business destination, then we will need to work together, because I often like to say that a state that has, which we are, 2.9 million people, almost 2.9 million people, the only way we can box above our weight like we do is by the work and the hard work of each of you in industry, government, coordinating with that, and then also education, all of us working together. And then when we do that, great things happen. And so I look forward to today. I congratulate you on being here. I appreciate your support. And I know that as we continue to work together, wonderful things are going to happen. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Kelly Cole. And I already gave a little bit of a background on her as far as the fact that she's now taken over this program. And we're grateful and very blessed to have someone that was as well prepared as she was to come into this job and hit the ground running. I'd like to thank the team. And now, with that, Kelly, come on up here and take over the show. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate the support that we've gotten for this event. And it would, as Spencer said, it would not be possible without both the sponsors and the attendees. And I think that all of you play a very key role in your communities. For those of you that maybe aren't as familiar with our project, I'm the manager of the Utah Broadband Project, and we're housed in the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and our team includes staff from GoEd and also from the Utah Public Service Commission and the Utah Automated Geographic Reference Center, who they are responsible for our mapping efforts. And if you've been on our website, you've seen our interactive map where you can put in your address and you can find your internet providers, and that's been a really important feature for us to be able to plan for the future of broadband in the state. We partner with over 50 broadband providers, mapping their service territories, and that data allows us to sit down and make decisions about where the needs are in the state. And I think that I can speak for our whole team in saying that the broadband providers have really stepped up for our state and really have made investments in rural areas along the Wasatch Front. And, you know, as Spencer said, you know, that the public sector, we can get out of the way and help the private sector to do their job and to provide the services that we need. And that's something that we've really seen in our broadband community, particularly in our rural areas. AGRC has produced some maps that I'd like you to all get a chance to see out in the lobby. They have kind of a map gallery, and you can see, you know, the coverage of the state. And one thing that I'd like you to pay attention to, we recently did a map of the month that shows how much the infrastructure has improved since we started the project. And there's a map out in the lobby that shows how many speed tiers we have jumped in different areas of the state. And I think that the big success story is that not all of those increases have been along the Wasatch Front, that there have been significant upgrades in rural communities, and that's just vital for the business community and for those rural communities to be able to compete across the nation and globally. Right now, we are undertaking a regional broadband planning effort, and I know that many of you have been involved in those meetings. And personally, as the manager of the project, you know, the big vision that I've had for those meetings is to give more opportunities to collaborate and coordinate between the public and private sector. And even in the short time that we've had those meetings, we're beginning to see those relationships forming. We are able to see examples of broadband providers sitting down with city officials and figuring out what the needs are and beginning to plan for the future. And I think that those relationships are the most important component of this project. Another effort that we will be undertaking in the next month or so, as many of you know, we did a drive test to test mobile broadband speeds about 2 years ago. And so we hired a company called Isotrope. They drove 9,000 miles of the state and were able to cover 6,000 miles of roads when you consider deadheading. And they were able to give us a really great view of mobile broadband wireless. So that includes AT&T, Verizon, any of the mobile providers, Strata, Breakaway Wireless. We will be redoing that drive test in November, and so we'll be able to see how the landscape of mobile wireless has changed over the last 2 years. So look out for that data. We're really excited about that project. And I also wanted to quickly announce, I don't want to take too much time because I'd like to give Glenn as much time as we're able to, but I just wanted to briefly introduce our new team members, and I'm not sure if they are in the room, but we've added some team members to our project. Amy Parker is our new project coordinator, and Heather Webster, she is not here right now, but I think she'll be here a little bit later today. She will be starting as our project assistant, and Adam McKay is also on our team. We've kind of borrowed him from another program in GoEd right now, and so we're very thankful for all of their help and support. And with that, I'll just have Spencer do an introduction for Glenn, and we're, like I said, so thankful that you're here to join us, and we hope that the sessions will be informative and that you'll be able to take the things that you've learned and implement them into your communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate that. And, now it's my honor and opportunity to introduce Dr. Glenn Ricart. This is a story of where experience and time matter, and the two aren't necessarily exclusive, but in this case, they are. He was the founder and CTO of US Ignite and inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame. He brings 40 years of innovation in computer networking and related fields to US Ignite. He's an internet pioneer who implemented the first internet interconnection point, the fix in College Park in Maryland, by the way, and was recognized for his achievement with an induction into that Hall of Fame into the Internet Hall of Fame that I mentioned in August of 2013. He also served as the academic CIO of University of Maryland. His campus implemented the first institutional-wide TCP IP internet network in 1983, using low-cost PDP-11 routers with software devised at the University of Maryland. He's got a little bit of flavor from Utah as well, however, because he has had, in his many senior executive positions that he's held, he was the executive vice president and CTO of Novell, and managing director of PricewaterhouseCoopers, and CEO and president of National Lambda Rail. So he received his PhD in computer science from the University of Maryland in College Park. And so with that brief introduction, in order to allow him to have more time to talk to you, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ricart.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I appreciate that very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And all of you have, I hope, internet connections at home. Nod. Okay, everyone who has a broadband connection, please raise your hand. Looks like about 97%, Spencer. That looks like it about fits the numbers there, so that's pretty good. So I have another follow-up question, though. The follow-up question is, how many folks think their broadband connection is as fast and responsive as they'd ever want it to be, no room for improvement? Okay, a little bit smaller number in that particular case. So maybe a little bit faster and more responsive from time to time, of course. Maybe when your kids are playing Xbox Live or something, that might be handy. So let's see, does anyone ever have one of these things appear on their screen? Wait, let's go, and anyone ever see one of those things? I see a few nods around the room. Okay, so that certainly happens. Did you ever have one of those things where it's a little bit unreliable and you've had to reload the page? Yeah, well, I want you to know, next time that it says to reload the page, I want you to think about this kitten here. It needs a page reload here before it can jump on you. And let's see, how many folks think that we could use some improvement in security to better protect our identities? Okay, a lot of hands for that. I wanted to show you what I thought was a particularly beautiful hacked web page. Okay, so this is a hacked web page, and I thought that the artist did a really nice job with that scream there. And that was what they replaced the front page with on that. So there's a lot of room for improvement, and US Ignite is a national effort to go and move our internet to the next level, to make things that are more responsive, have lower latency, real time, and we're applying that in public benefit areas, healthcare, education, transportation, public safety, areas like that. So US Ignite, this national effort, was born in June of 2012. This is a picture of the White House South Auditorium. To start and launch US Ignite, we had the head of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, that's John Holdren. We had the director of the National Science Foundation. The director of the National Science Foundation, Subra Suresh here, he is one of the big backers of US Ignite, and there's a lot of programmatic funding coming through the NSF for US Ignite and communities participating in US Ignite. This is Julius Janikowski. In June of 2012, he was the chair of the Federal Communications Commission. Larry Strickling, head of NTIA. And this guy is Todd Park. He is now the Chief Technology Officer for the United States and ducking responsibility for Obamacare website. No, I'm just kidding. I think he's really busy working, trying to make that work out as well as he can. So US Ignite is about next generation applications made possible by new technologies. New technologies being developed by companies around the United States, including right here in Utah. And those new generation technologies allow for these new applications. It's a job maker because these new technologies are opening up the opportunities to create new small companies that can take advantage of these new technologies. So Spencer, some of your 100,000 jobs should be coming from new companies here in the Valley and the rest of the southern Utah, in northern Utah, who are taking advantage of the changes, the revolution I'm going to talk about this morning in the technologies that are now being available and are going to be the next generation of the internet. So this is really what US Ignite is trying to do. It works in conjunction with states, cities, and communities like you folks here in Utah. We're a public-private partnership. We work together with the public sector, the White House, the OSTP, the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, but we also work with lots of communities and other folks. Our goal is over our planned 5-year existence, from June of 2012 to June of 2017, to help encourage 60 compelling, transformational, next generation applications that really lead the way and prove the case for a next generation internet. We'd like to see eventually 200 communities being involved in test beds. And we'd like to coordinate best practices among those communities and industry partners. This map shows you folks who were involved in US Ignite. There's some new ones who are not on the map yet, but you'll notice that here in Utah we have UEN, we have Utopia who are involved, and they are right now the Utah members for US Ignite. We'd like to see a lot more of the folks in this room joining US Ignite. We'd like to see CenturyLink, we'd like to see Vivint Wireless, we'd like to see Xmission, we'd like to see lots of the companies that are here participating in US Ignite along with these others. You'll notice that our industry partners include the biggest networking companies around. It includes AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, a lot of the equipment manufacturers, Cisco, Extreme Networks, Juniper Networks, and so forth. So you're in good company, would love to have your participation. These are the kinds of things that we think will define that next generation of technology. We think that the network itself becomes programmable. We're used to being able to program a cell phone app, a server app. Why can't we program the network to do interesting things for us? How can we take advantage of bigger speeds, gigabit, low latency, on demand? How can we make it ubiquitous? How can we protect it? How can we make it healthcare HIPAA compliant? All of these things. So I am really excited today to be standing in the middle of Provo. And of course in Provo we have Veracity, soon to be Google Fiber. And what they are able to do is to provide a gigabit experience eventually to the folks here in Provo. And of course there's already a gigabit experience available on Utopia. And in fact the lowest cost gigabit in the nation is right here, $64.95 from Xmission. Thank you, Pete. We really appreciate that leadership in nationwide pricing. It's right here in Utah, lowest cost gig in the nation. This particular logo is the Gigi logo. The Gigi logo was invented by Blacksburg, Virginia. And the reason I'm showing you the Gigi logo is because they recently became a member of US Ignite. They are doing gigabit wireless throughout their downtown. Gigabit wireless throughout 16 square blocks of their downtown, using, for those of you who are technical, the 802.11.AC protocols. So wired, wireless, we're just looking for the new applications, the new things this makes possible. And I'm using Gigi here as my symbol for gigabit. It applies to any kind of gigabit, wired, wireless, copper, G.fast, fiber, whatever have you. And let's just think about what a gigabit does for you. There are really three things that you can do with a gigabit. Remember, I'm about applications. One thing that it can do, of course, is to handle big data. Obvious. If you've got all of the information from, for example, the flood gauges throughout the United States, so you want to do some downstream flood prediction, big data, we have a US Ignite project working on that to go and help to predict where there are going to be flood stages down to specific city blocks, counties, is that going to happen? So handling big data certainly applies. But because it's faster, it means your bits get from end to end more quickly. And that means it's lower latency. And with lower latency, we get more realistic applications. More realistic applications. Anyone here with an iPhone? When you go and you scroll that up and down, it's like a piece of paper you're moving with your finger, isn't it? Now, that's of course a fiction, but the operating system is so fast that when you move your finger, the software moves the image underneath to keep it right underneath your finger, and your brain just says, oh, I'm just moving a piece of paper, and you don't even think about it. It's so natural. That kind of responsiveness is available over a network if and only if the latency is sufficiently small. So low latency really permits human-like, real-like interactions. And the third thing that you can get with a gigabit is to be able to virtualize or to slice the connection. So let's say instead of having one connection into my home, I want to have 4 or 5 separate connections. Perhaps one is my ordinary internet, we'll keep that, but another one is going to be used from time to time for medical consultation because I have had surgery recently and take a look at how well that surgical wound is healing. One could be for education because my kid is sick today, can't be in class. I'd like to be able to go and have the class brought to my kid. Another one might be for a home dialysis machine. Needs a very reliable connection to monitor exactly what's going on with my blood oxygen levels and needs to be monitored very carefully, very reliably. How can I bring in these separate connections into my home? And the answer is from the data centers we've all had for a long time to virtualize. The server virtualization revolution happened a decade ago. The new revolution is in network virtualization. So I can get and sell independently, generating new revenue for the carriers, independent new virtual connections, which might be on a short-term time basis or a longer-term time basis, depending on the application. So these are the three things that we can do with a gigabit. And I'm going to talk about some of these other things I'm bringing up here a bit later. Now, I want to combine that and take a look at one of the new technical networking revolutions. It's called software-defined networking. In software-defined networking, instead of having a network engineer who goes out and writes configurations for your network and loads it in and tests it and then leaves and it's that way forevermore, software-defined networking says you can actually change how that network works through software. You have software controllers that are able to change the topology of the network, change the characteristics of the network, reroute flows from one place to another. The symbol you see here is for OpenFlow, one of the first early standards for software-defined networking. And because it's software controlled, this means that services can be very dynamic. It can be turned on for 10 minutes for my surgical wound video to the hospital. It can be turned on for 2 days to allow my contagious child to be able to see their classroom. It's not something that you would do for necessarily a month or 2 months or have a 2-year contract on. It allows a whole new class of applications that you can turn on, turn off, and generate incremental revenue. Because the physical facilities are already there, you can now virtualize it and get additional revenue. All you carriers, how many carriers do we have around here of some kind? ISPs? Not that many. All right, well, you have some ability to get incremental revenue for doing this. And in the future, it will lead to a programmable network. So the virtualization and slicing, together with software control, means that our networks will be more flexible, more programmable, and more adaptable to the applications that they run. Applications which couldn't have run before because they didn't have a proper network to run on now can do that through software. One other thing here, this is the Large Magellanic Cloud. It's a very close cloud of stars to the Milky Way, our galaxy. And I'm using it to represent a local cloud because I thought all the other cloud metaphors were kind of trite. So here's my cloud. If the cloud is close to you, like the Large Magellanic Cloud is close to the Milky Way, you can do some amazing things. In fact, what you can do is you can have low latency because the distance is short. If you have to go to a faraway data center in South Dakota, it's going to be longer latency. If you have a Utah data center, of course, and we want to see the Utah Data Center Initiative be very successful, it can be very responsive, and that's going to be terrific. It also means that if it's close and local, the cost of running massive amounts of data is very low. We don't have any long-distance carriers, anything more than metro distances, to have to pay in order to get that big data very quickly to the application. So we can really make some interesting applications that start off in these local cloud centers that are located near you, give you low latency, big data, and of course you could slice or virtualize those as well. You could make an application that goes and says, I need this piece of network, I need this piece of server, I need this piece of storage, and be able to get exactly that for your application. And that application could charge for it and provide money back to the carrier for providing the virtual network and back to the local cloud data center for providing those services. Who is going to provide these local cloud data services? It's a big question. I think a lot of the economics going forward over the next decade depends on who that is. There's a lot of candidates. It could be the carriers who say we're going to do something more than just provide carriage. We're going to provide these local data center capabilities which you can program and load. That would be an economic boost for them. It could be the folks who are already in those data centers, people like Akamai who are content providers. They could expand and say we're going to have those kinds of facilities available. Or maybe it will be new startups of some kind. But it's going to happen. You've seen AOL already do it. They already have micro data centers throughout the country, and AOL is one of the leaders in doing this local cloud computing. So you put all of this together, and you've got the three major components we think are driving the revolution. That is gigabit to the end user, dynamic services through software-defined networking, and keeping a chunk of the cloud local so you can be very responsive and create applications that work and turn in your hand. And that's going to be what really drives this. Let's talk a little bit about applications and what those can be. If you have a low latency capability, you can do augmented reality. You could go and hold up your phone, have the phone image analyzed by a local server, and see on your phone an overlay that includes very detailed information, augmented reality. We have a US Ignite project called OpenPath that teaches students the history of their city by walking down the city and seeing information about historical buildings and areas as the camera is recognized back in the local server where that is, and age-appropriate, information-appropriate to their situation is brought to them. It's being used for scavenger hunts. It's being very successful. Music master classes. Not everybody has a bassoon teacher, as I learned when I took bassoon when I was in high school. I, in fact, ended up taking bassoon lessons. I was in Erie, Pennsylvania, from somebody an hour and a half away in Buffalo. But you can do music lessons in real time if you have a sufficiently low latency network. So that bassoon lesson could be delivered to somebody in Manti, Utah. Supercharged Chromebooks. You're going to be here in Google Fiber territory. You already know that a Chromebook is display device that does not have a lot of compute capability within it. It depends on Google servers and a fast network to make it work correctly. And with a very low latency, very high bandwidth network, you can really supercharge this kind of so-called dumb terminal or N-terminal supercharged Chromebook type of environment. That can really make a difference. For big data, personalized genomic medicine, accurate tornado prediction. We have a project in US Ignite that goes and takes a look at three-dimensional radars being brought from multiple directions so as to be able to predict tornadoes down to a one-block level. Very interesting. And when you virtualize or slice, it makes it more easily possible to do telemedicine. Real-time emergency response is another US Ignite app. And almost anything can be done because the network and the servers essentially personalize themselves and tune themselves to the application that they're running. So that's, again, the trio. Gigabit to the end user. We've got a lot of that happening right now in Utah. That's very good. Software-defined networking. This is something that I'd like to see Utah take more advantage of. I think that, for example, in the Utopia Open Access Network, we could have at least one ISP providing some software-defined networking capabilities and opening up these applications that make sense for big bandwidth for small time periods for incremental revenue. And local cloud computing, which is going to permit more and more real-time apps that make people feel as though they're in contact with the applications that they're working with. So I think those are the three magic things. So how does this apply right here in Utah? Well, as I said, US Ignite is already active in Utah. US Ignite has been working with the Utah Education Network and Utopia. The University of Utah has received some US Ignite grants already from the National Science Foundation. And we're working with the folks at the University of Utah are actually some of the leaders in the whole country in the technology behind this. So when I talk about slicing technology, there are two main centers in the United States doing it. One is at the University of Utah in the Flux Lab, headed by Rob Ritchie. The other one is at the Renaissance Computing Institute in North Carolina, headed by Ilya Baldin. So one of the two major centers for the research on this is happening right here in Utah. I think it's a very nice combination. So this is what's already happening, and we want to see even more of this happen. So now I'm going to tell you what I would like to challenge you to make happen. The following slide has my wish list on it. My wish list is that we get bold thinkers and get them involved in what can happen. What can happen here in Utah if we have these advanced networking capabilities? If we have gigabit to the end user, if we have local cloud computing that can be extraordinarily responsive and make applications like AutoCAD 3D models twist in your hand. We need education and healthcare professionals because those are the areas that we've found in other cities are the most applicable to these new technologies. So we want education, healthcare professionals to get involved, think about the new applications that are possible. Entrepreneurs and VCs, above all. One of our big supporters is the Kauffman Foundation because they really want to see entrepreneurship, in this case in Kansas City, because this is a new opening. Whenever the technology changes, whenever there's a revolution, there's little seams and cracks that open up for new companies to take advantage of that new technology. And that's happening right now, will be happening over the next 2 or 3 years as this landscape gets redone. Carriers and network operators statewide. Those who continue to provide current services and just extend them are going to eventually be overrun by carriers who are innovative, are taking advantage of these new technologies. Local foundations and civic organizations. I'd love to get the Eccles Foundation involved. I've used their logo here without permission. They're not involved, but I would love them to be involved, so I'm putting it on the slide prospectively. And someone to call meetings and plan events. Maybe we can ask GoEd to do this, or maybe there's somebody else in the industry or in the community who would step up to be, in essence, organization for US Ignite. Do we have people from mayors or mayors' offices here in the crowd? So in other cities, it's often coming from those people and/or from the Chamber of Commerce or other folks interested in economic development, because it makes a big difference for what's happening. More involvement from the University of Utah. I think BYU could use US Ignite projects for capstone computer science students. Utah State, the Aggies, I think having them involved, I think would be very important. Again, they're not so much involved now, except for the University of Utah, but I'd like them to be involved. I'm using their logos prospectively, what I'd like to see happen. Code for America has a brigade in Salt Lake City. They have 25 members. They're meeting here on November 15th. They're a great place to get involved. You should get involved with them. They should get involved with US Ignite. There's a maker fair that goes on in Salt Lake City. That's another area where we could go and have some great involvement, make things happen. And there's a Salt Lake City Hack Night tonight. So come at 6 o'clock tonight. There's a Salt Lake City Hack Night. There's been upwards of 200 people there at some of the past meetings. That would be a great source to get involved with other folks who want to make a difference. So I just want to show you a brief video from our application summit. We had a one-year birthday, and at that birthday party, some very good things happened, and I'd just like to play you this video.
Good morning, US Ignite.
All of you are members of the US Ignite community. You have accomplished what we have accomplished. We couldn't thank you enough for your passion and your conviction, your commitment to doing what we've set out to do over the past year.
This group of people right here are changing the way that networking and the internet are helping make a difference in the daily lives of people and the way that we live, work, and play.
We're at the center of an ongoing societal transformation.
What can you do if you have infrastructure that's even more open than the internet? What can I do in this kind of world?
Just imagine for a moment the possibilities.
I'm going to tell you about building the gigabit web. This is about empowerment, this is about connectedness, and this is about opportunity. This is about creating a bigger surface area for the mind. How are gigabit networks going to empower the end user?
It's just amazing to see the various teams coming together.
We are projects that enables a radically different architecture for the web.
It sort of brings out more of the usefulness of the gigabit connections within a city.
This is the biggest future of the telepresence, beyond telepresence right now. Infinite kind of possibilities what we're exploring.
I work on this project called the Hyper Audio Pad. What I'm trying to do here is create a view source for media and encourage media literacy, transcribing audio and video and bringing it out of its black box, and so we can integrate it to the web.
We build a easy 3D web software. 3D data's huge. So with really fast internet connections, you can send that quickly and work with it very quickly. And that's what we're showing today.
This project is meant to visualize scientific data. We want to leverage new technologies, really utilize the web as a platform. Anybody with a modern browser can start to handle scientific data formats. You can use this application to create a collaborative workflow.
Our project is looking at how we can use next generation networks and video to help support people who are taking care of loved ones who have dementia, with the goal that they can live a lower stress life.
We are working on virtual reality, allowing people at different sites to remotely collaborate with each other to work on more advanced techniques for manufacturing.
We're OpenPath, peer-to-peer, browser-based communications.
Using the technology to reformulate and reconfigure education into a connected learning experience.
This is the Reliable Communication Protocol Project for Remote Process Control. The idea is to use software-defined networking to establish a reliable communication between 2 points in the internet so that I can control something remotely and not worry about losing control of it just because of a minor network glitch.
Planet Impact is a real-time analysis tool for builders, developers, and planners to actually tell stories about their proposed project in a visually immersive environment.
Connect Health is a social fitness experience. It's online. So instead of having to go to the gym comes to you.
We can monitor the power grid to help local municipalities and utilities advance notification of a power outage.
The best way to predict the future is to invent it.
From the early days when there was doubt, and now 30, 40 applications. I am so proud of every single person in this room. I just can't tell you how happy I am.
This is a group that is busy inventing the future.
Those applications are really what US Ignite is all about.
So I invite each of you to think about helping to invent the future and participating. I'd love to see some things organized right here in Utah. There is support from the federal side to go and help make some of these things happen. If you would like to see something more immediately, November 1st through 3rd, we're having a Gigabit Explorer event, US Ignite in Kansas City, using the Kansas City Google Fiber. Our partners in this are the Mozilla open source folks, KC, Kansas City Digital Drive, Google Fiber. We're going to be meeting in the Google Fiber space in Kansas City, the Google Developer Group in Kansas City, and the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City are all helping to sponsor this event. It's going to be terrific. We're going to have a few hundred people get together and create some of these applications of the future. Next time, I'd like to see it be Utah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. That was a great visionary speech. We appreciate you coming and joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and break off into our breakout sessions. As you can see, we have a lot of great sessions this morning. We have a session on smart schools, broadband and economic development. We have a session on mapping that our team at AGRC will be hosting. And we have a session on social media and emergency management. And we're also having a session on website development. Fluid Advertising has come in to offer that session for us. So if you could go ahead and make your way to the breakout sessions as soon as possible. Just as a reminder, all of the breakout sessions are being recorded, so if you could be prompt to your sessions so that we can have everything settled in so we can begin recording them, that would be wonderful. Thank you.